Hello. In this video, I will demonstrate how to work with Filestack workflows. Workflows are a great way to automate your file ingest with business rules, automated transformations, and conditional logic. In this video, I'll demonstrate how to set up a Filestack workflow, a webhook endpoint for that workflow, and how to enable security for the workflow. I'll be using the Flask web framework in Python, but the ideas in this video apply to any framework and language that you choose to use. To start, let me show you the app I have. It's a simple button here that opens up a Filestack file picker. I can select a file and upload it. So I'll be modifying this to use a workflow. And before I get to modifying the code, I first need to set up a workflow. So let me go over to the Filestack dashboard. And to set up a workflow, I need to go over to the workflows link here on the left and click it. And I'll just click create new. And I'll give this a name. Demo workflow. And now by clicking here, I can add my first task to the workflow. So the idea behind workflows is I will upload a file, and if that file is part of the workflow process, it will go through the steps that I define here. So there are two general types of things that can happen. There are transformations, which means I will take a file and transform it in some way. So if you just look here, you can do things like flip it, blur the faces, add shadows, and so on. Or you can get some information about the file. So you can get the file type information, you can get the PDF information, and so on. And then when you're done with all those things, you can store the transform file to a particular location. So I'm going to build this workflow, and by building it, I'm going to demonstrate some of the common things that you'll do. But of course, your workflow will be different because you have different use cases. So in my workflow, the first thing I want to determine is the file type. So I'll click on file type here and just hit save. And now we see this file type in the middle. So the idea here is a file will be uploaded through the picker, and then it will reach this file type task. And the task will determine the file type. So in my example here, I'm basically going to do something depending on if it's a PDF or an image. So if it's a PDF, I'll do one thing, and if it's an image, I'll do something else. And to know if it's a PDF or an image, I need this file type. So now let me think, what should I do if it's a PDF? So I'll click the plus again. And what I want to do is I want to get some information about the PDF. So this is going to be the case when the user uploads a PDF file. So I'll look for the task called PDF info, and it's down here at the bottom. I'll click it, and there are no options other than the name. I'll hit save. And then I can click it again. And I see I have this add new condition. And this will add some logic. So this logic can be used to determine if I should be in this task at all, depending on the results of the previous task. So the previous task in this case was file type. So what I want to do is I want to say if the MIME type, so MIME type was application/PDF. So what I can do is I can say path MIME type and then is equal to, and then application/PDF. So this means that this PDF info will only run if this logic is true. So if the MIME type is equal to application/PDF, then this will run. So I'll save this. And then what I can do is I can click on this smaller plus here to add a branch. And now we think about the other case that we want to support, which are images. So I'll click here. And the task that I want to run is called image size. So I'll go and I'll click image size and click save. Once again, I'll open it up and then go to add a new condition. And this time I want to say if the file type is equal to an image. And I'll hit save again. So this path information you can determine in the documentation, or you can also look at the webhook results that you'll see later in this video. But this information needs to be here if you want it to only run sometimes. If you want it to run all the time, then you'll just leave out any of the logic like we saw in the first one. So this file type here has no logic at the top and it doesn't even support it because it's the very first thing. So because there is no logic here, this will run for every file that's uploaded. So now we have our branches. One is for PDFs and one is for images. Let's go ahead and fill out the PDF info one. So what I can do is I can add another task. So this task I want to be PDF convert. And now we see here at the top, we have some more options. And what I want to do here is I want to reduce the number of pages of the PDF to 1, meaning I just want the first page of the PDF. So I'll put pages as 1 for PDF convert, and I'll hit save. And then finally, after converting the PDF, I'll store it. So I'll click on store here. And just to tell which file has been converted, I'll say converted to 1 page as the file name, and I'll just save that. There are other options, but for simplicity, I'll just use file name and I'll hit save. Okay, so I have a very basic workflow set up. This isn't the complete version that I want, but I think this is a good point to test it to see what happens. So to get this to work with my file picker, the first thing I need to do is I need to get the workflow ID. So the workflow ID is here, and I'll just copy it to my clipboard. And now I'll go over to my code and I'll go to the JavaScript for my file picker. And inside of the options that you pass to your picker here, the client picker, I need to add something called store to. So the key will be store to, and it takes in an object. And then the key inside of this object is called workflows. So workflows. And then it will be a list of workflows that you want to run. So here you pass a string of the workflow IDs. So I'll just paste in the workflow ID that I used. And then I'll just add a comma. I'll go over to my app, refresh, and then I'll hit upload and I'll select a file. So I have these 2 PDF files. One is just 1 page and another is 2 pages. I'll just hit 2 pages and hit upload here. And now if I go back to the dashboard and look at my content browser, I see 2 files have been uploaded. So one is the original file, 2pages.pdf. And then the second is this converted to 1 page file. So let's take a look at the original. So you see I have 2 pages here, 1 and 2. And then let's take a look at this converted to 1 page. So now looking at this, I see just 1 page. So we know that the workflow ran because we see the file name here and we see that that file only has 1 page in it. So let's go back to the workflow and continue to modify it. So just click edit. And now here, what I want to do is I want to add some more logic. So for PDF convert, I want to run this only if the number of pages is greater than 1. So what I can do here is I can say pages for path is greater than or equal to 2. And I'll click save. And now I need to think of the other case. So I can add a branch here by clicking the plus. And then here, I'll directly store it. So I'll put some logic here. I'll put pages is equal to 1. And for the file name, I'll put 1 page original. So I'll save this. And now let me go back to my example and I'll click upload and I'll click on the 1 page and let's see what happens here. So it's been uploaded. Now I'll go back to the content browser. And we see 1 page has been uploaded. So this is the original. And then I stored it with another file name called 1 page original. So you don't have to store it in the cases where you don't want to actually transform the file. But for demonstration purposes, I'm just showing it here. So now we have that logic. Let me make sure that the logic for saving the 1 page original doesn't run when I upload a PDF with 2 pages. So I'll upload this and I can refresh my content browser and we see another converted to 1 page. So we know for sure that this one didn't go through the branch where the pages equals 1 is true because this has more than 1 page. So that was our PDF branch. Now let's go to the image side of the branch. So here we have this image size, and this will get the size of the image that's uploaded if it is an image. And remember that there's this logic here, file type is equal to image. Now what I can do is I can click plus, and I want to add a crop. So I'll click on the crop task here. And the 4 values here are the X and Y coordinates to start the crop. So I'll just put 0, 0. And then the actual dimensions that you want the file to be. So I'll put 250, 250. And I'll put some logic up here. So what I'll say is width is greater than 250. And I can add another logical condition for height. And we can say it is greater than 250. So if it's greater than 250 in the width and height, then it will crop. If it's smaller than that, then it won't perform any crop. So I'll save this. And now let me add a branch. What I want to do is I want to store the original file. So click store, and I'll add the logic up here. We can do width is less than or equal to 250, and also height. So height is less than or equal to 250. And for the file name, we'll call this original image and hit save. So now we have the logic for both the crop and for this store here. So if it's greater than 250, it gets cropped. And if it's less than 250, it gets stored. And here, after cropping, I want to store the result. So I'll click store, and then we'll call this cropped image and hit save. So now let's try the workflow again. I'll go back here and I'll upload an image file. So one image is greater than those dimensions, so 640 by 360. So let me upload this. And now I can go to the content browser. And we see here I have the original. So this is what the original looks like, 640 by 360. And then the cropped image. So I can click on that and we see it's cropped. So it has the 6 and 4, but then everything else is cropped out. So now let me upload the image that is smaller than the logic. Upload. And I can refresh here. And now we see 200 by 200 an original image. So let's take a look at 200 by 200. We see it here. This is the full image. And then for original image, we see the same thing. So as you can see, with just a few steps, I was able to add all this logic to determine what type of file was being uploaded and to transform it if that file had certain properties. So now that we have this workflow, what I want to do is I want to create a webhook for this. So anytime a workflow happens, my app will receive this webhook data and I'll be able to do whatever I want with this information. So let me go over to my app. And here in routes.py, the only thing I have right now is this index for just rendering that page where I upload everything. What I want to do here is I want to create another endpoint called webhook. So in Flask, you can define endpoints using the route decorator by doing this add main.route at the top. And then I'll just call the function that gets called webhook here. And this is going to send a post request, or it's going to accept post requests from Filestack. So I'll just make sure that this uses post requests instead of get requests. And what I want to do here is I simply want to save a file to the file system anytime a webhook comes in. So in a real system, you would decide what to do with this information, but I want to show you the data that comes in. So in Python, to save a file, I can do with open, and then I can give it a name. So webhook. And what I'll do is I'll add a timestamp onto it. So at the top here, what I can do is I can import from time, import time. And if I make this an F string, then I can just put the timestamp. So time, by calling the function, I get the timestamp, and I'll call this .json. It will be a write file, and I'll give it the variable name F. And then I can do f.write. And then I need to convert the data that comes into the webhook to JSON. So for that, I need to get it through the request object here. And I also need to import JSON. So import JSON. And then here I can write JSON dump s and then request.json. And then for a webhook, you just want to return success. So you don't have to return any actual content. It just needs to be a 200 status code. So I'll save that. And now my webhook has been created. So now I need to tell Filestack that this webhook exists so it can send the information to my webhook. So what I'll do is I'll start a program called ngronk. And this will allow me to have a domain for my local development environment. So I can't just put localhost in the Filestack dashboard for my webhook. So what I can do is I can use ngronk to get this for me. So if you want to use ngronk, you can. If you want to put this on a server with its own IP address, you can also do that. But in this particular case, I have a development environment, so I just want to use this app to provide this for me. And now that I have this URL, I can go back to the dashboard and I can look for webhooks under configuration. And I can simply add a new webhook. So I have the domain here, and then slash webhook is the name. And then I'll just use workflow as the type of webhook that I'm creating, and I'll hit add. So now let me try uploading something. Doesn't really matter what. Let's go with 2 pages. I'll click upload. And now let me go back over to my app, and I'll just wait. So I'm waiting for a post request to come in for the webhook endpoint. And we see the webhook has been called with a post request. Here I have the file. Let me go ahead and format it, and let's take a look. So here I have an ID, I have an action, so Filestack workflow. We have a timestamp, so the time that everything happened. And then we have some information, the workflow ID, the job ID. We see results here. So when I called the file type, it gave me the data. So file type and MIME type. So this is why I could use application/PDF. And for the other one, I use images. I could have used document here, but I chose the MIME type. And then for PDF info, we see the things that return here. So we see pages, we see page size, is optimized, encrypted, and so on. And then finally, we have a store at the bottom. So it tells you where it stores it, and it tells you the file name and the handle and any other information that you may want to know about this. And then finally, at the end, we have finished. So as you can see, it was very easy to set up a webhook. Of course, it's up to you to decide what you want to do with that information, but getting the information from Filestack is very easy. The last thing I want to do is I want to add some basic security to this. So what I can do is I can go over to my portal, and then I can go to policy and signature under security. And then I can click on this use security button and then turn it on. And then just put in my password and confirm. And now we see security successfully turned on for this application. And there is some documentation on creating policies, but I'll walk you through the process and explain everything on how this is done. So the important part from here is you need this app secret. So I already put this in my configuration here. I have it in my env here. So my app secret along with my app key, but this is the app secret that I see here on the dashboard. And I'll use this to create the things that I need to pass to Filestack for security. So before I do that, let me show you what happens when I try to run this now. So I'll refresh the page and I'll click upload, and I'll try to upload one page. I'll click upload and we see it fails. So I don't have any error handling here, but if you look closely at the bottom, you see 403 forbidden. That means I don't have the proper information sent along with the file to say that I am uploading the file and not some person who has access to my app ID. So to get the file uploads to work again, what I need to do is I need to pass a couple of things to my Filestack init. I need to pass something called a policy, which is going to be base64 encoded. And then I need to pass a signature, which will be an HMAC signature. So I'll walk through the process of creating that. And how I'll do that in my app here is I'll create a function that returns both. So I'll call this get Filestack security. You can call this whatever you want. And what you start off by doing is creating a policy object. So at a minimum, this needs to have an expiration date. So the key for the expiration time is called expiry. And then you need to pass in some time. So it's going to be a timestamp. I already have time imported, so I can convert the time to an integer. And then I can add, let's say 300 seconds to it, which means that this will be valid for 5 minutes. So this is the most basic policy that you can create. And then once you have the policy, I need to convert it to a string. So I'll say policy string. And this will be JSON dump S policy. So the idea here is I'm taking this Python dictionary and I'm converting it to a string version of that dictionary that is valid JSON. Okay, so now that I have this policy string, I want to base64 encode it. So what I'll do is I'll import from base64. I'm going to import b64 encode, which is a function. And then I'll create a variable here called encoded policy. This will be b64 encode. I'm going to pass the policy string and then encode it to UTF-8. So this first needs to be in binary before it can be encoded. So encode it as UTF-8. And then here at the bottom, I'll return the encoded policy. So now I need a signature. So I'll create another variable called signature. And I'm going to use the HMAC library here. So I need to import HMAC. And I'll also need a library called hashlib. So for HMAC, I'm using the new function on HMAC. And I want to pass in the app secret that I have. So I'm going to use current app here. So current app.config, and then the name of the value, which is Filestack app secret. And I'll just paste that in there. And then what I want to do here is I also want to encode this with UTF-8. The second argument that I need to pass to new is the encoded policy, which I have above. And then finally, I want to pass in the hash algorithm that I want to use. So hashlib, and the algorithm is SHA-256. And then finally, I can do hex digest to convert this to a string. So it will be binary. I want to convert it to a string, and then I'll return that. So for this encoded policy, I need to decode it because it's going to be in binary. And then instead of hex digest, I need the signature here, not hex digest. Okay, so let me show you what this looks like. What I'll do is I'll print this out. So print get Filestack security. And now I'll just reload the page. And now we see this tuple here. So the first part is the encoded policy, and the second part is the signature here. So I need to pass these two things over to Filestack. So I can start by passing them to my template, and I'll call this Filestack security equals, and then it's just going to be the values that I have in that get Filestack security. So I'll save this. Now I can go inside of my template, and down here, I can then convert the values in the template to be available in JavaScript. So to do that, I'll create two variables, two constants actually. So one will be Filestack policy, and this will be Filestack security. And I'm taking the first thing out of there. So the first thing is the policy. I need to put safe so it doesn't change any of the characters. And I'll do the same thing for the signature. So Filestack signature. I'll take the security, get the first thing out of the tuple, and mark it as safe. And now I have those two things available as constants in JavaScript. So finally, I can go to my script.js. And up here, what I want to do, so before I initialize Filestack, I want to create an object called client options. And here, the key is called security. And I have the policy and I have the signature. And as you can guess, it's the two things that I have here. So Filestack policy and Filestack signature. So I'll put comma there. And with the client options, I need to pass them to init. So they are just the second argument. So client options here. And there's one more thing to do. I need to make these strings. So I'll just put quotes around them for both. And now I can refresh the page, click upload. And now let's see if my upload goes through. So I'll upload one page, hit upload. We see the bar goes through. And if I go to the content browser, I should see one page and also the original for one page. And that's what I see as the last two things here. So those are the things I wanted to cover in this video. I covered how to create a workflow. I covered how to create a webhook for the workflow. And I covered how to add some basic security for the upload and the workflow process.